Hello, I'm Joyce Woodworth. Welcome to the Spirit of Winona. Windom Park has come alive in the last few weeks. The fountain is turned on and the flowers are in full bloom. This is just a sampling of the beautiful gardens that exist in Winona, some for all to see and some hidden. In the next series, I will show you some of these gardens. We will learn the significance of them and we will enjoy the beauty of them. I would like to introduce Sharon Ropes, who is a master gardener in Winona, and she is going to help us with our tour of gardens. Welcome to the Spirit of Winona, Sharon.
Well, thanks, Joyce. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you. Can you tell us about what it means to be a master gardener?
Right. People ask that all the time. And the Master Gardener program is a program developed by the University of Minnesota Extension Service to train community volunteers who are willing to help the public with all things horticultural. And we go through about a 40-hour training course that is taught by University of Minnesota faculty in all variety of classes. We have woody plants, herbaceous perennials, lawn care, shrubs, I mean, you name it, and we've taken a class on it. And when we successfully complete the class, then we need to donate 50 volunteer hours the first year during our internship year, followed by 25 hours per year after that in order to remain an active master gardener. And I can tell you that most of us put in way more than that.
How many master gardeners are there in Winona?
Well, it started out, I think, in the late 80s. There were only about 2 or 3, and we have grown. Every 2 years there's a training program, and I think we have over 30 now. We've just finished.
These master gardeners are willing to help Winona with your gardening questions. They can be contacted through the County Extension Office at 457-6440. The biggest project for these master gardeners is Windom Park. However, Sharon tells us of some other gardens that Winona's masters are also involved in.
The Redeemer Gardens out at Redeemer Lutheran Gardens. There are a couple master gardeners that work with a group of children there during the summer, and they raise food for themselves and also for the food shelf, I believe. We also have a master gardener who works out at the Arches and has been supplementing their plantings out there for quite a long time. Another master gardener helps out the residents at St. Anne's Hospice with horticultural projects. And there's a variety of other groups and organizations around town that we help out with a little bit. We don't typically just come in and do work. It has to be an educational project that we're assisting another group with.
We are presently in Windom Park in the beautiful gardens here. And Sharon, tell me, I see there are 3 distinct gardens here. Can you explain the 3 gardens that are in Windom Park?
Right. Well, we came up with this idea a couple of years ago. We talked to the City of Winona. So this is a collaborative project between the City of Winona and the Winona County Master Gardeners. And we wanted to plant gardens that would enhance the centerpiece here behind us, which is Princess Winona. And the gazebo was already there and had a minimal planting, so we divided into teams. The team that planted the garden around the gazebo named it the Wedding Garden, and they planted it full of plants that are associated with wedding lore and love, legends, and things like that. And that was designed by Vicki English and Sharissa Templeton.
The gazebo in Windom Park is truly an enchanting place for a wedding. The brick path begins on the west side of the park on Harriet Street and leads up to the gazebo through a beautiful array of flowers, all with a history associated with weddings. Sharon tells us about the significance of some of these flowers.
We're here at the Wedding Garden now, which surrounds the gazebo. Around the gazebo are probably the flower most associated with love, and that's the roses.
The rose bushes alternate around the gazebo in a red and white pattern. The fragrance encaptures the area. Even the honeybee stops to smell the roses.
We also have little daisies for He Loves Me Not, and bridal wreaths by Rhea, and bleeding hearts. And once you have a bride and groom together, soon there are children to follow, so we have baby's breath in the garden too. All the plants here are associated with love, lore, and happy marriages.
Forget-me-nots lead the way up the path of love, sprinkled with annuals of snapdragons and petunias for color. Johnson's blue geraniums adds its purple color to the lavender plants that stand for love. Azaleas with romantic names like Northern Lights are set next to daylilies called Happy Returns. Yarrow, which is known to give a married couple 7 years of good luck, stands near the purple sage, which adds wiseness to a marriage. The sage bursts wildly to the sky near the gazebo, assuring the bride and groom that this is the right decision for them. As we all know, no marriage is perfect, just like this garden. Sharon tells us a story of the plant that makes this garden less than perfectly sweet.
One of the plants I like to talk about is not blooming right now, but will be in the fall. It's a dark blue flower similar to this iris, but it's called monkshood. And we put that in the garden just so the garden wouldn't be too sweet. It does come with an interesting history from medieval England. It was known for a cure for unhappy marriages. And the trick is that monkshood is extremely poisonous. And it's said that wives would chop up the leaves and put them in a summer salad for their husbands, and that would be the end to their unhappy marriage. So we just planted that in our garden here for a little bit of fun.
We did manage to find a monkshood plant in a private garden. The beauty of the little purple hoods certainly would enhance a wedding garden, despite the story of its deadly deception.
Okay, then to the south we have an arcing bed here that's planted in the late Victorian style, and we call that the Victorian garden. That was designed by Cindy Welke and Carolyn Dingfelder, and the late Victorian style demonstrates sweeping beds and flowing color patterns, and some kind of unusual Victorian subjects there, but plants the Victorians loved.
The Victorian garden is the garden in front of Princess Winona on the south side of the park. The Victorian garden gives Princess Winona a chance to gaze upon the flowers that were in bloom during the time of her life. As we look close upon the garden, we see the sweeping lines Sharon refers to as typical in a Victorian garden. A trail of purple and gray annuals begin the front and wrap around the whole garden. The colorful zinnias flow through the center of the garden. We see a line of mahogany plants behind the annuals, which include mahogany astilbes and mahogany corabelles. The corabelles were introduced at this time, and you could be sure to find them in a Victorian garden because Victorians loved anything new. The unusual Victorian subjects that Sharon refers to include the Harry Lauder walking stick. It is this twisted tree which grows in this form partly because it is so very slow growing. It is actually a contorted mulberry tree. The Victorians loved to plant it in their gardens because they loved the fantastic and bizarre. On the other hand, they loved the sentimental and the sweet, which is indicated by the tree at the opposite end of the garden. This is a weeping tree, called the Siberian peach tree or pendula. Two of the unusual plants in this garden are the long-stem blue veronica and the Vetch's blue globe thistle. Two wonderful reasons to take a walk in Windom Park.
And then to the north side is the Minnesota garden, and I designed that, and that's featuring perennials that are tried and true classics for Minnesota gardeners. And they're all labeled, and we are working on a key so that as the public comes through here, they can look to these gardens and try to get some ideas for their own backyard and say, oh, what is that pink flower blooming there? They'll go over and know it's hardy for Minnesota, because one of the things we really focus on is we selected plants that are disease resistant and has as few insect pests as possible, that'll tough through our Minnesota winters and not flop when the drought hits in the summer.
The Minnesota garden is found behind Princess Winona on the north side of Windom Park. Sharon describes the garden to us.
Here in the Minnesota garden, we planted a variety of tried and true perennials for northern gardens, and we also have a few summer annuals to give us a little bit of bright color along the borders. But in amongst the perennials, we have planted some herbs too that you might want to try in your garden. This is sage, and you can see it's just starting to flower here, so it's a wonderful ornamental. Besides being a perennial that comes back year after year, has few insects and disease problems, it has a wonderful upright lavender spike that'll bring some ornamental interest to your garden. And it coordinates well with the other blues and lavenders that we've planted here.
The Minnesota garden has many beautiful common as well as different flowers in it. It's exciting to know that these are Minnesota's hardiest. We see the familiar black-eyed Susan and purple cone flowers mixed in with beautiful white daylilies. We see a wispy-looking flower that sways in the breeze and points to the sky. It has the unusual name of snake root, and because it sounds like something evil, the name is being changed to fairy candles, much more appropriate. We see an unusual daylily called prairie blue eyes, and beautiful white phlox, and lovely daisies, all Minnesota hardy. Through the purple Siberian iris, we see an unusual peony. It carries a single white blossom that will not fall like its heavier sister peony that falls to the ground because of its weight. Pink lupine and purple chimney bells stand beautifully in front of a dusting of yarrow. The yarrow has been with us since ancient times and used in the past by soldiers to bind their war wounds and stop blood flow.
So it's a good teaching garden, all three of these.
The Minnesota garden is indeed a good teaching garden, as are the Victorian garden and the wedding garden. I urge Winona to take advantage of the beauty offered in our enchanting Windom Park. Thank you, Sharon, so much for joining us on the Spirit of Winona and also for beautifying the gardens in Winona.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure.
Great. This is Joyce Woodworth for the Spirit of Winona. Please join us on the next segment on gardening when we take a tour of Sharon's personal garden. Till then, enjoy the Spirit of Winona.